Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with life coach Dan Mangina. Today is Thursday, September the 24th, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time. Wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And Dan's doing his little thing in the background, kind of mimicking me, for giving me a smile.
Yeah, but you changed the words. Like, I think you caught me copying you, so you decided to change the words a little bit so that I couldn't mime.
I just wanted to see if you're paying attention, that's all it is.
I'm on to you, Mr. Thiessen. I'm on to you, sir.
But anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that Cindy Chavez told us yesterday. She told us a really funny story. I'll try to relate it to you. And I thought, if nothing else, it would make a fun beginning for a conversation. She said, now, and this kind of came up in the context of, I don't remember exactly what it was we were talking about off the air, but somehow the topic of Star Wars came up in a conversation. And so just, one thing led to the other. Well, you recall in like the original Star Wars, or Episode 4 as they call it, where Sir Alec Guinness and as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker, the two of them have met, and they've now gone into Los Isis spaceport, and they're about ready to try to find Han Solo to get a spaceship and so forth, and they get stopped by the stormtroopers. For identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. He waves his hand, does all that stuff.
We can go about our way.
Exactly. Well, Cindy tells us a story, actually, about how she went to the Department of Motor Vehicles in her area shortly after she got married, because she had to change one of the documents to her married name or something like that. It was along that line. And she got up to the first window that you go to in a DMV and said, I need to get my new name on this document. And the person behind the desk said, well, you have to go to that line over there. And when you're done there, you get this piece of paper. So you go to this line over here, and then you do this. And she realized by the time she was done, she was going to be there about 2 to 3 hours. And so literally she waved her hand in front of the person and said, I just want to get my name on this document. And the person said, oh, okay, I'll do that for you right now.
That sounds like Cindy. It just sound like that's not the list of actions that you're looking for.
And I'm thinking, how cool! Somebody actually used a Jedi mind trick successfully. So I just wanted to start off. Have you ever tried anything like that? I've never tried it myself, but I'm kind of curious now.
To an extent, in so much as that before going into a connection, I run the slide of what I want.
Yeah, sure.
For it to play out the way I want it to.
Yeah, well, that's basic, sure.
Yeah. But
just without the mind weight.
I don't do that. I don't do that.
You don't need to see his identification.
You don't need to see my identification. I do have something, another hand. Have you ever seen me do a new timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost a similar thing, but I'm talking to the universe instead of the person. Like, I don't fancy this one. Boop. Oh, there we go. Everything's changed.
Just kind of waving it away. That's cool.
New timeline. Yeah.
Because I think this is kind of something. I mean, this is sort of a fanciful one because obviously it's related to popular movie. But I think this is kind of pointing in general to where we're going. I think that as time goes on and more of us learn about how to maintain our vibration, how to stay in that high vibe place and focus on appreciating even the stuff that we're not crazy about and all that kind of thing. I kind of think this is one of those things that comes along the way in some form. I'm not sure exactly what form, but I think we just get more and more control over how things work in life.
Do you know what? Honestly, I think people do Jedi mind tricks without realizing it.
Oh, why is that?
Even when you look at a situation, someone says something you're not interested in, and you decide in that moment, hang on, this isn't the outcome that I fancy. I'd like something else. The waving of the hand and the speaking of the words, which is a permission slip that represents the change in direction that you've indicated you want to manifest.
That's a good point.
It's a permission slip for instant manifestation.
Yeah.
So whether the person let Cindy go to another line or said that she had to be there was a matter of what she matched in the moment. Her waving her hand and saying, I just want to change my name, was a permission slip that indicated her commitment to changing timelines to the outcome or to selecting the outcome. Up until that moment, there were a number of different things that could have been happening. Either she could have been manifesting the opportunity to create that point in time that gave us this story and the lessons that people could have for it, Or she could have been on a different vibration and changed lanes in that point. But what's important is that at that moment, the hand movement and the words that she said were a permission slip that indicated this is the life track that she's on now. This is the timeline, the trajectory that she selected. And of course, the events unfolded accordingly.
So this is pretty cool because we started off kind of laughing at the whole thing. We're actually starting to lay out the initial foundation for how this thing could really work.
Oh, yeah. And people are doing it, but they just might use a different permission slip.
Yeah.
Maybe they've got a lucky coin, or maybe they've got another ritual that they've got. The ritual might just be longer, but effectively it does the same thing. It's what creates in three-dimensional reality the switch between this life track and trajectory and this life track and trajectory. That's it.
That's a good metaphor right there, a switch, because it's almost as if you are flipping a light switch or something.
We're always flicking switches. This is the law of perpetual transmutation. We're always moving from form to non-form, form to non-form, form to non-form. And as we come back into form, on that journey from non-form to form, energy looked to us for direction of what form it's going to take. Now, in that moment, if I'm taking the action of a permission slip, whether it's waving my hand, hopping on one leg, or saying a mantra, or doing a meditation, what I'm doing is I'm flicking the switch and saying, oh, these are the instructions. Hey, energy, as you make your way into form, these are the instructions of what I would like to manifest. And those instructions always follow perfectly. We just don't normally give it in a language that energy understands.
Well, let's define a term there a little bit, form and non-form. Let's say specifically what you're talking about.
Physical and non-physical. Energy, physical. And this isn't woo-woo stuff. This is the way the universe works. Energy is pulsating in and out of form, but it does it at such a pace that we don't see it. And we have the illusion that we've got a moving image, when actually we've got a succession of flashes, which in quantum physics they call quanta, that are happening at such a pace that just like a picture book, like a flick book cartoon, or an old school movie where those slices of film were spliced together.
Right.
And they happen at such a pace that we've got the illusion that we're in a moving image, but we're not. We're in a series of snapshots, and each one of those snapshots is taking form according to our instruction.
That's a really interesting way of describing it. And I have to admit, that's the first time I've ever heard quantum mechanics described exactly that way, but it's cool. I like that.
Well, I'm not a quantum physicist, so I have to speak in layman's terms because that's the language that I speak. So taking the very, obviously we're just talking at a very surface level, quantum mechanics. There's no disrespect to the quantum physicists in the,
sure. Oh yeah.
You know, we know it goes much deeper, but in terms of what we need to understand in order to make use of it, this is what we're talking about. It's managing the instructions that we're giving to energy, quanta to quanta, as it makes its way into taking form in what we call physical reality.
Well, plus also, wasn't it one of the early quantum mechanics teachers, if you will, who said that when you think you understand quantum mechanics, you really don't?
Yeah, because there's so many different variations of everything.
Yeah.
The second that you grasped it, you actually created more than one outcome. So everybody's right. And you can get lost in the theory of it, the philosophy, the esoterics that ride on the back of it. Or we could say quantum mechanics in quantum physics. It's seeking to put quantifiable boxes around esoteric spirituality and consciousness. That's one of the things we're doing. Look at the neotic sciences that was like trying to study measuring the soul and all sorts of crazy stuff that those guys are doing. Some really crazy experiments that they're doing that are basically quantifying what we call spirit consciousness and all that groovy stuff.
It does get mind-blowing. I don't really delve deeply into the works of the quantum physicists, particularly the ones that also explore a little bit of the spiritual side, because very often they lose me. Like, I don't know what you're saying to me. The words are coming through, but they just aren't connecting.
It's really funny. Like, when I read Lynn McTaggart's work in The Power of Eight, I got quantum entanglement. I understood it. And then I was doing some research for my own sake, because I don't like to talk on things unless I know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I'll just keep my mouth shut. So I was doing some research, and my head was melting. Like A plus B squared to the derivative of blah, blah, blah. Like, so basically, two things in two different spaces can have the same experience because they're entangled at a level of reality that doesn't observe physical space. So basically, two physical things can be connected. I'm a physical thing, Walt's a physical thing, we can be connected because there's an aspect of us that operates at a level of density that's not separated by space and time. Okay, I get it.
I'm just remembering that there was something in the news within the last 2 or 3, maybe 4 months where they had actually found a way to prove the entanglement theory.
It's been proven. It's been proven. But what it is that science is only, published science.
Actually, I got to clarify what I said, because they don't actually prove theories. Science doesn't actually
They demonstrate theories.
They demonstrate, yeah. So
yeah, I got pulled up for that once.
Yeah. So they demonstrate.
They demonstrate.
So I got to be careful about what I say there.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm thinking is somehow they had managed to take some kind of reading in like a nearby solar system and compare it to some reading here, and they matched. And I don't remember exactly what the
so they're starting to do it over bigger distances now.
Yeah.
Okay. I know they've done it in the lab. They've done it in the lab now. But I think the application of this stuff starts to get a bit weird. Really.
It
starts to get a bit weird. And so in my experience and the scientists that I've spoken to, the ones that want to kind of keep their tenure and not get laughed out of the community, no, because seriously,
I know.
But there are people like Bruce Lipton that don't give two flying hoots and just like, look, this stuff's weird, but I'm still going to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
By the way, I've got 50 years experience. You can't tell me anything, bro. But a lot of the people that don't have that, because he did a lot of time in the lab before he came out and started saying his weird stuff, right? Yeah. Quote unquote weird stuff. Look at Dr. Joe. I mean, I've been following his work. What year is it now? 2020. 5 years, and I know people that have been following it for 10. You'll hear him saying some crazy stuff now, quote unquote crazy. Early, when I first heard of Dr. Joe, read You Are the Placebo, there's no talk of other dimensions and all this stuff. It's all he spent 5 years gathering enough evidence and nobody can tell him anything. Not everyone's done that. If you're new to the game and you're just sort of coming into this, then maybe you do want to keep the possibility of you getting a grant in the box. And so you might not share your out there theories of philosophy. So it's not as popular. And one of the things I would love to see happen in the world is more of these guys that are out there doing some of the quote unquote fringe stuff not being shut down.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that is an issue. That's for sure. On the other hand, I think this is where I kind of lean on LOA and energy theory, because there's so much attention now being put on that stuff in a positive way. Like, I'm curious, tell me more. I think it's getting harder and harder to shut it down no matter what the opposing forces might want.
But then you've always got people that will talk without backing up what they're saying, and they'll share things that aren't, and it kind of like rains on the parade of so you do have people like Dr. Joe Dispenza who have done enough science to back up everything that he's saying. Right. The measurements are there. Right. He's measured people when they're having spontaneous healing. He's measured them. He measures the energy in the room so you can see when the meditation's happening, everything gets elevated, like measured. In fact, like I said, my first ever in-person Dr. Joe Dispenza event I went to in Berlin a few years ago. That's what actually gave me the confidence to start sharing my work, because hang on a minute, there's science that backs this up. Yeah, I was in the event and I've still got the notes from that. I was like, oh my God, this beyond intention, that does make sense, and there's the science for that. And that's why the gratitude has been working that way, because of this and that, and the quantum this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, and that ties that together. Oh, that's why that works. Oh my God.
That's cool.
And then within a year, I'd started making the move to walk away from what I was doing then to what I do now. So thank you, Dr. Joe.
I wonder if Dr. Joe knows he helped to kick off a career. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I told him. I had a conversation with him about it.
Oh, okay, good. Well, it also makes me think about an interview that I had here on the show last May. I brought in somebody who is a researcher from the University of Maryland who is investigating the relationship between COVID, placebo and nocebo. And we had a good conversation about this study that she's currently doing. I reached out to her this week to say, how's the study going? Because obviously she couldn't talk about the study at the time. She could only talk very generally, which is what she did. And she wrote back to say that they've finished the data collection and they've written the first round of the paper. But it's going to be another 3 to 4 months before they have anything to share. That's how carefully they're moving with this kind of thing for the reasons that you just described.
Yeah, you have to. Because you have to. It's optimal too, because there are people out there that are they're just sort of shooting from the hip. Yeah, this and that. And look at all these times. And I even got caught out with this. It's really funny. The woman that helps me run my Instagram account, there was a quote that I had that was from Einstein. And it was a quote that I got from an event by a very reputable person. I took it down from the wall. And it's not even an Einstein quote. So there are those of us that are...
There are a lot of those.
Yeah, quoting things.
Yeah.
And saying things that aren't correct. I remember just talking about the demonstrating versus prove. There's a woman that I know from up in Seattle, and I was there at the time, and she pulled me up. She was like, "Yeah, I was really happy for this meeting that we're going to be having today," and she pulled out a load of stuff to basically have me get my stuff together because I'd done an event, and she wasn't happy about some of the science that I was calling science, and she had a degree in physics that I didn't know. That she had a degree in physics. And she broke down a lot of stuff for me, and I got so much from that time that we spent that day.
Wow.
Because it just cleaned up a couple of things. Now, it wasn't loads of stuff. She was being a bit attention to detail.
Well, we all do that, though.
But it was one or two things, but the ramifications of those one or two things had wider impact. And she took me through and showed me how to clean it all up. So,
really cool.
We don't all have physicists in our back pocket. Have us clean it up. But when you do understand the science, then the cognitive connection that you can make to the aspects of what we're talking about on this show and in other places like this, and how we can literally manifest and create our lives, goes to a different level. No, there's a lot of power in it.
Yeah. So I guess I should, it's too late to preface it. I guess I have to footnote it. I have to footnote what we've been saying and say, look, we haven't figured out this Jedi mind trick yet. This is something we're speculating about. So, any reference to science, we haven't done the work yet.
This is theoretical. This is all theoretical. Well, but I mean, I'm a philosopher first, I just take ideas, form and postulate ideas around things that make sense. 1 + 1 = 2. Mm-hmm. And, where my tickle is fancied, I then go and seek some empirical evidence to back that up. But, when we look at belief and the role belief has, the placebo and the nocebo of it all, which Dr. Joe did a lot of research into in his book, You Are the Placebo, which was my first book of his.
Mine too.
The empirical evidence isn't as important as the belief in the empirical evidence.
That's
so
true.
It really comes down to what you believe in.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to.
I'm kind of hoping that one of the things that comes out of Dr. Koloka's study will be, because it's about COVID, of course, that means it's going to get quite a bit of attention. I'm hoping that more of the scientific community starts considering again what they've kind of perhaps dismissed a little bit, and that is the role of nocebo, the role of placebo. I mean, even to this day, despite the research that has been done and is in the books, large chunks of the medical community basically just kind of dismiss it. They kind of put it to the side and say, yeah, it doesn't really apply to this.
Yeah, but the drug I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by the way, literally as we started the show, they've started the banging again. And I went up to see them today. They're actually ripping up my neighbor's rooftop.
Oh, okay.
They're ripping up the entire tile floor. So the entire tile floor is being ripped up. So that's
we're not hearing a lot of banging. So you're hearing.
Oh, brilliant!
I'm glad.
Yeah.
We're hearing a little bit, not much.
They're muffled. Gratitude point all the same. Yeah. So, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination, but just logically speaking, the profit motive behind some industries ensuring that we are believing that drugs and medication are the only answer are real.
Well, sure, yeah. I don't think you have to be a conspiracy theorist to realize that the profit motive plays a major role in all areas of human life, including scientific research. Exactly.
So we'll...
and well, I always have a distinction that I put in where conspiracy theories are concerned. Because from my perspective, a conspiracy theory isn't just, piecing together stuff without having a strong evidential foundation. It's also piecing stuff together that leads to some sort of dire end or has some dire thing that happened. I mean, there are going to be some people who say, well, as soon as you have a profit motive, you have a dire end. But I don't necessarily see it that way. So it's like, okay, well, there's a profit motive. It's not dire. It's just, okay, it's there.
But
you just kind of recognize it.
I mean, I studied economics for as much of my degree as I did, although I recommitted again to finishing it. But it's like people that crap on capitalism. Capitalism isn't the problem. Greed is the problem. And greed and capitalism they're not like married together. The profit.
It's not like other economic systems that didn't have any greed attached to them.
Yeah, it's like the profit motive is what inspires value to be created, and value to being created is what means that there are jobs. It's what means that goes back into the economy and small businesses and farmers, and think that people have actually something to exchange with them. So the profit motive is good. Greed is bad, but greed comes from lack. Growth, including profit as an expression of growth in business, is the way of nature. Greed comes from lack. It's not the same. They're not the same thing.
That's very true. Yeah. In fact, that's another thing that I'm very hopeful for about the general area we're in, that we talk about on this show and other shows, that we are helping to raise some awareness of that fact, that it's about lack. It's not about anything else. It's just about fear, for lack of a better term. It's fear.
I mean, we had this with Micro to Millions, a couple of the guys who kind of like bowed out and used, money isn't what matters to me. I'm more interested in raising my consciousness, so I'm not going to do this anymore. It's like, all right, bro, have fun raising your consciousness on the streets. Like,
well, not necessarily. I mean, they may have learned enough that they could, get enough money and they were fine, but they just weren't working for the millions anymore.
Yeah, but the thing is, the whole thing is Micro Million isn't about being a millionaire. It's about having the capacity to manifest whatever level of wealth and abundance allows you to have more choice so you can live the life that you want.
Yeah.
So it's not about being a millionaire. It's just, if you want to be a millionaire, just for craps and giggles, go and do it. There are people that came into the program and they just wanted to be financially free. Month, 2 months, 3 months, they're financially free. They don't come to group calls anymore. They don't need to. They're financially free. For some people, they just wanted to top up the college fund. You made a couple $100,000. You don't need me anymore. This is what I want. Go be good. Go enjoy life. My point is, people that were like, no, I don't need money. I'm more interested in bringing around the new earth where the old paradigm of money is no longer here. It's like, all right, bro, cool. you have fun with that one.
Well, I have to admit, I have expressed at times the opinion that, not that money is going away. I don't think money is going away, but we're going to think about money quite differently in the next 10 years as a society. I think. Well,
we have to, because the last 50 to 60 year experiment around money, which, money worked very well for a few thousand years. The last 50 to 60 years, they've tried it differently.
Yep. And
it's not working out at all. It's not working out.
Let's just say it's not working out the way some people thought it would work out.
It's not working out, full stop. It's just not working out. Just if you want to know, there's a lot of extra stuff that's probably not as interesting, but if you want to track the last step in the evolution of money, which is really the extinction of money, read the book Aftermath by James Rickards. He breaks it down.
Oh, okay.
James Rickards is an interesting chap, but he's got the qualifications to back up what he talks about, and he'll break down why it's not really working. He's very pro-American, so there's a bit of sort of anti-China sentiment that's not really necessary. Yeah. But in terms of understanding how this experiment of allowing money to be just numbers on a screen that people can just make up, it's not really working out very well. It's not working out. US dollar's been the reserve currency since the Bretton Woods thing. But at the time, there was the gold standard at the time. There is no gold standard. It's now literally a private corporation deciding how much money supply is there and then charging the US government for the blessing of using its pieces of cotton that they decided the value of, with zero behind it apart from the fact that everybody's got a vested interest in keeping this Ponzi scheme. It's literally a Ponzi scheme at the moment.
I'm chuckling too, because if you had brought this up with me about, say, 10 years ago, I would be jumping up and down and freaking out and saying, yes, I totally get what you're saying. And boy, I've been saying the same thing all this time. And I have a different perspective on it now. It just feels completely different.
What do you feel about it now?
Well, it ties into what I'm saying about how we're going to think about money completely differently in 10 years. I don't know how we're going to think about it differently. I've been racking my brain, and I have like two general areas that I think about, and they really don't work together. And it's either going to go this way or that way. And I'm beginning to think it may be neither one.
Yeah.
It may not be either one at all, but I don't know how it's going to play out. All I know is that, yes, we could have this long conversation that would lose most of our listeners over how money supply works, and I think we'd agree with about 95% of it between the two of us. But there's also the energetic side, and energetically, the way money is working right now works, but it doesn't work.
I mean, energetically, at the pure energetics level, there's always going to be a medium of exchange because energy is always being exchanged, right? Maybe it will be Bitcoin. Maybe it will be back to cockle shells. Maybe it will go back to gold and silver like people are saying it will do. Maybe it's going to go to water. Who knows? Maybe it will turn into fairy cakes and unicorn horns. I don't know. But what I do know is that I agree with you, there's always going to be a medium of exchange. Yeah. But what we consider to be valuable, because I mean, if you look at gold, the thing that always made me laugh about gold, who said that was going to be the thing that everyone said was so important?
Oh, yeah. There was no authoritarian dictate saying, it's going to be gold from this date forward.
That's why, when you start to go deep into the conspiracies and they start talking about aliens, like one of the first stories, here's one, the first stories I ever heard about that was, and this is what the Scientologists believe, and a lot of the different alien people believe, right? They sing from the same hymn book, that the reason why gold was so important is because aliens that were coming to Earth came because gold was a mineral that isn't in a lot of planets in the universe. So they came to come and get gold. The same when you see films like Avatar, where they go to like this far universal planet to get this rare mineral, right. Aliens were coming here to get gold.
Same idea, yeah.
And that's where the value for gold came, because it's the aliens that had the value around gold.
Now all we need is the energy tree with all the knowledge in it, like they had on Avatar.
Oh, but we do have that.
How so?
I was joking. Well, come on.
Oh, I thought you were actually. I was really hoping that you knew of one. I'm so let down.
Sorry, man. Sorry. That was poor attempt at humor, apparently.
Oh well. No, seriously, you had something like, ooh, that
or
would be
an
great,
overextended belief in Walt keeping up with my humor. There we go. But
Josie has a question. I got to pass this along.
Hey, Josie, how are you today, Josie?
She says, Joseph Campbell's hero journey is often applied to Star Wars. Do you believe it can be applied to the money game as well?
No, it's unnecessary. Stop. Stop. Just stop. 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 Much love to you, Josie, but stop. Stop. Just take
stop.
A pause. There's no need to add any philosophy or additional layers. Just follow the instructions and get some money. Apply that mastery to manifesting other things that you want.
I'll mess with your mind a little bit more.
Go for it.
I was just kind of wildly imagining, speculating the other night as I was getting ready to go to sleep, just letting my mind kind of flow. And I was thinking, okay, well, I think I'm at like step 3 in phase 1 of the money game. Mm-hmm. What if like step 4?
Are you sure? Because every time you say that, it turns out that you're like a couple of steps further. Just double checking.
Let's put it this way. As far as I know, I'm consciously. Assume for the sake of discussion.
Okay, for the sake of discussion, we'll make that assumption for sure.
And then we'll assume that I got a step 4, okay?
Yeah.
And step 4 actually hit the goal perfectly or just beyond.
Yeah.
And then just for fun, what if on step 5, like step 4 was like, $60, okay? Step 5, I drew in $3.6 million, which becomes my new edge.
It's happened. It's happened.
It has actually happened.
Those kind of things happen. You got to remember, don't forget, when I do the money game challenge, we're only going for $10, euros, dollars, and people do tens of thousands and hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars. They were only going for 10. So it does happen.
But really, like that big number.
Well, we haven't had 3.6 million or whatever you said.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I was putting out like way, way out there is what I was doing.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, if you manage to let go of the stories that are holding you back from doing that, then it's perfectly possible. But at that point, the question becomes, have you mastered yourself enough to repeat that? Or was it something you stepped into momentarily? But that's where the game comes in again, because phase 2, where you're taking that number and you're pushing that edge out, you're developing that mastery. It's not a fluke anymore. That's your edge. You're driving it home. And then phase 3, you're reestablishing comfort with it by giving yourself a break and just manifesting back up to it.
Okay, well then you're basically affirming what I was wondering was true, and that is if you have that huge of a jump like that to a level that you've never seen before, is there enough belief in that first jump that you can actually manifest stuff in phase 2?
But this is the thing. This is what it comes down to. What it comes down to was it that you had a temporary belief, or you dropped all the old stories and stepped into a new state of being?
So
and
let's assume it's the first one.
The answer to that would always come down to you. So if it's the first one, then of course you're going to be stretching it. You're going to be stretching it. But you've got that expansive expression of your ability to manifest something new.
And that's the part that I kept teasing myself in my mind. It's like, yeah, but you do have the experience of having manifested that 3.6 million. As much as you might not have a big belief structure there, the fact is still there. That's got to work on your mind. But
this is where again, the micro shifting is so important, because the smaller steps are more repeatable.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're just beyond the realm of where you are. It's easier to hold them. Lottery winners, they won at the money game. That's what happened.
That's true.
They won at the money game. They weren't playing the money game, but they were playing the money game, and they won, and that's why they have the millions. But then 90% of them go back to exactly where they were within 5 years, because playing the money game and living the money game are two different things.
They are, yeah. So that's why I was wondering, okay, well, how would I want to handle that edge? How would I feel at that point? I guess you're right. It depends on what my state was getting there. Was it an actual shift, or was it just like I felt out of step for a moment?
And again, this is where, the difference between someone, I mean, I give away a lot of free stuff, but there is a difference between doing a challenge or whatever, reading a book and working with me. Because if I was working with you, then what would happen is we'd map out your next steps for phase 2 according to you.
Yeah.
So maybe we'd go for 10% of that, 300 grand.
Well, it's true. I mean, you've got the 3.6 million in the bank. You're going to take, a few thousand of that and pay Dan. Okay, Dan, how do I get to the next?
So yeah, we would, but again, I don't like to say this I don't like to give the variations out in the public, because people then start freestyling and so, yeah, well, I'm my own shaman. I know this. I don't
right.
do your own thing, but there's something to be said to following a formula.
Yeah.
For someone that's like thousands of times, we've got thousands of instances of this working according to people just following the instructions. Like, there's a pattern here. Maybe follow the blueprint. Follow the blueprint. People seeking to freestyle something that they haven't mastered, I always find funny. You haven't even gone through the 15 steps.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But you're gonna take something that's been working consistently and spice it up. We had a guy that was on a course that I did, and the course was based on the work of a guy called Vadim Zealand. It's the reality transurfing stuff. I was in the course. Okay. He hadn't even read the book, but he kept stopping the course to give his ideas about how Vadim could have done it better.
Mm.
But you haven't even read the book.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I think this is really messy. Maybe I should get an introduction to him so that I can give him some suggestions on how to improve his work.
Oh, jeez.
Like, I'm sure you're a clever guy, but at least finish the book before suggesting some changes. At least finish the book. So,
no, I agree with you. Well, I'm actually, the reason I went on this little crazy speculation journey here was actually tied into the original topic. Because the original
Okay.
topic, the Jedi mind trick, the wave
This
of
is
the
not
hand,
the topic you're looking for.
that's the one. Well, I'm kind of entertaining it now because we've already laid out a foundation how this could actually play out. Okay, so all right, well, what do we do with that? And I'm thinking to myself, well, if we are posing the idea that it can be done, then certainly microshifting is going to apply to that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I also kind of layer in the concept that the difference between magic and science is, there are lots of ways you can define magic, but I'm going to define it one particular way. The difference between magic and science is that magic is something that you haven't been able to define as science yet.
Mm. Yeah.
You just haven't learned enough about it yet.
Yeah, you watch enough sci-fi and they'll tell you that.
Well, that's true, yes. But if you're not a sci-fi watcher, you may not know that particular one.
Exactly.
So the wave of the hand, we could kind of describe that as like the magician's, magic trick going on.
Abracadabra.
Right. But what if it turns out that there is science behind it? Well, now that wave of the hand no longer seems like a magic trick. Now it just seems like step 1 or step 2 or whatever in a series of steps that you do.
Ah, yes. I would say, again, if we look at the flow funnel, what we're doing is we're just cementing in what we've done. If I'm holding the vibration of it, I've chosen what I want, I'm holding the vibration of it. I've mentally rehearsed it, I've anchored in that timeline, and then I simply flick the switch to receive it. This is the timeline I'm looking for.
That's not a bad philosophy right there that you just laid out. Yeah. That'll do. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is cool. The whole concept that we talked about on the show, the whole LOA thing, source energy, all that kind of stuff, is really about creation. Just imagine something and play with it. And the more you play with it, the more ideas come to you, the more stuff comes to you, and you can start piecing things together and so forth. And literally, that's how creation happens, just through that imagination process. Well, that's kind of what we're demonstrating and exploring here with this wild and crazy concept of the Jedi mind trick. And I'm convinced if we just stick with it, we're going to create a real Jedi mind trick. We're really close to it already.
I think, again, people are doing it. They're just calling it something else, and they're not waving their hand and saying those particular words. They've got their own variation of abracadabra.
Yeah. If we take that and extend it out further, how much of what we call conscious creative manifestation is a Jedi mind trick?
All of it, I think.
I think so too.
But it comes down to really your view on what reality is and how it works. For me, reality is a projection of what's going on here that I'm seeing back through my senses. It's like a light show. That's what I believe my reality to be. And so I'm changing my mind about what I'm seeing in the light show, which I perceive as a different timeline, but it's just I'm looking at a different movie. It's a different movie reel in the camera that I'm seeing. Oh, okay, it's a different movie reel. So the Jedi mind trick is just changing my perspective about what I'm seeing. Because reality at the end of the day is what we're seeing. That's where the placebo and nocebo effect, esoterically speaking, kicks in. Because it's just which variation of reality are you telling yourself that you're witnessing? I was reading a book yesterday, and the author was even sharing that it's possible. Again, he was just postulating, and I'm not a mental health professional. Don't take this as medical advice, so on and so forth. See a doctor if you need one. But it was like maybe people in some people in mental institutions that are being told that they're delusional are operating in two different realities, physically and mentally.
No kidding. Yeah.
So their physical body's inhabiting this timeline, but mentally they're experiencing another timeline. So in their mind's eye, they're literally seeing a completely different reality. And we've called them crazy. And
could that also be a mental illness at the same time? I would say yes, in the sense that if you're in two different realities at the same time and you don't understand what's going on there, that would knock you off balance.
Yeah, and obviously your physical body then in danger if it's experiencing a three-dimensional reality that's different from the one that you're witnessing at a different level of consciousness.
Yeah.
So, even if you look at the idea of someone that has delusions, right, or has hallucinations, we see in that the physical expression and what the mind is experiencing can be two different things.
Yeah.
What we're doing with manifestation is bringing them together with something that we've consciously chosen.
Right.
Visualization is having one where you recognize that you're disassociated. a very deep visualization. You go into it willingly and embody it, but then you're able to make the conscious choice to step out of it. That's the difference, I think.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense too. It's making me think about, you've mentioned in the past that you and Alex has also mentioned that you both are on the autism spectrum. And that it reminds me of the movie about, what's her name, Temple Grandin. Have you seen that one? I'm trying to think what the movie is called.
Wow, Walt's telling me about a movie. Okay.
Yeah. Alex, are you writing this one down?
Hashtag Walt does it.
I can't remember what the name of the movie is. It may be just like Temple or something like that. But Temple Grandin is a woman who is on the autism spectrum, fairly strongly in the autism arena, to the point where she wasn't like so closed up that she couldn't communicate, but it was a challenge for her, and it was a challenge for her mother raising her in the 1970s when there was so little knowledge and information about autism anyway, but she ended up becoming a professor and was able to explain to other people what it's like to be autistic. She was one of the forerunners of that.
Wow.
And if you look at the movie, I wish I could remember what the name of the movie is, but look up Temple Grandin and you'll find her movie. It's a popular movie that was put out. And one of my favorite scenes in that movie was where she did a lot of work with cattle. And as a young girl, she was sent to a relative's ranch out in the western part of the United States. And in this particular scene, you know how if you have like a cattle ranch or a horse ranch, they have the gate in front and you can drive through the gate. Well, she looked at the gate and like the camera, you're looking through her eyes, and through her eyes, you're seeing not just the gate, but you're seeing a schematic diagram showing how the gate opens and how it closes.
Yeah, that feels like me sometimes.
And you looked at this movie. If you haven't had that experience, like most of us have, we look at that and they say, wow, that's really cool.
It's like even when I used to...
a different perspective from what we normally think of when we think about people who are autistic. That's what I think of when I think about what you were just talking about, that the more that we explore things that we previously thought of as being an illness or, in some ways abnormal, what we find is that illness or that abnormality is showing us stuff that we never even conceived of before.
Yeah, opens us up to witnessing more things from a completely different angle.
Yeah.
It's even like the music producer, Pharrell Williams, and
right. Mm-hmm.
Him and his music partner, Chad, the guys in Nerd, they produced all that music at least in the 90s and 2000s. He said that when he makes music, he sees colors in the sky. Really? So he sees colors and he brings the colors together to make the sound. And I have a not too dissimilar experience when I make music. It's like I can feel the sounds of it, and then I pick an instrument and I bring that sound through, having heard it. Or even when I was making a cappella music, it was exactly the same thing. It wasn't. It's like I saw people going through this really strategic synthetic process of this chord and making a song this way, but I literally had a whole song that I could taste, feel, and touch that I embodied through an instrument. It's a really weird experience.
Yeah. By the way, I just looked it up and I feel really stupid because the name of the movie is Temple Grandin.
Yeah, 2010.
That's the one.
Yeah. I found it.
But it's a wonderful movie. I recommend it to anybody.
I'm going to look it up.
Oh, the perspective that it gives you is just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll be looking for it.
And one of the scenes that I really love, I guess, a very common phenomena among particularly children who are autistic is that they spin. And are you familiar with that?
No, but carry on.
No, apparently it's a sort of a comforting mechanism. Spinning
I've got
actually
stimming.
calms them down.
I've got stimming, so my left leg does that.
Really?
Yeah, I've got a different one, but people do have different ones.
Yeah, and she also she couldn't stand to be touched by a human being, including by her mother, which drove her mother crazy.
Yeah, I've got a weird thing about being touched by strangers. My touching thing has got a bit better, but I can't be touched by strangers on the street. Like walking down the street, I literally jump out of the way of even rubbing shoulders.
Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've got a lot better with it and able to take it a bit more, but I've been really bad with it. Especially if I'm not ready for contact with strangers.
Yeah, sure.
It's just really irksome and terrible for me to be touched.
Well, she demonstrated her genius because her mother was explaining to her, partly because she desperately wanted to hug her own daughter, how important hugs were and that they're therapeutic and so forth. And Temple, even though she couldn't stand being touched, took that to heart and invented a hugging machine. Literally, like being in a corral and being hugged by materials.
Okay.
I mean, the lady's brilliant. That's all there is to it. She also, now this is a little bit, this has a side to it that some people aren't going to like too much, but she wanted to make the cattle industry more humane. Mm-hmm. And she saw on her, I think it was her uncle's farm or cousins or whatever, because they were cattle ranchers. They saw how the cattle were butchered, how they were killed off, and she didn't like it. It was too traumatic for her. So she invented a new way to do it where it's just, they're so calm about it leading up to the point where they're about to be killed off, and then it's over. And there's like no trauma at all. And I'm thinking that takes a special mind to come to that kind of conclusion, to come up with that kind of an invention. It's really something. So
sorry, I keep muting because I don't know if you can hear it, but
every once in a while, we heard like a drill at one point, and
so I've been muting back and forth.
That's all
but
right.
Yeah,
just amazing stuff. So getting back to the topic then, because all this does tie in. I mean, literally, this is what's setting off in my mind. All these little directions we're going into is coming off of that one topic of the Jedi mind trick. If we're right, and I think we are, that literally every time that we are consciously manifesting something, we are performing a Jedi mind trick. Mm-hmm. Then we can also say that, for instance, in the realm of autism, which we were just talking about, autistic people are also performing their own Jedi mind tricks. We just may not necessarily recognize them as such yet, but that's what they're doing. They're doing this stuff that just, when we find out what it is, we're like gobsmacked. Just,
I mean, and the thing that's so magical about, especially people that are deeper onto the autistic spectrum, we don't know what's going on because the capacity to translate it isn't there.
Yes.
And that fascinates me all the more about what could be going on. My friend Diane had a meditation where she saw her nonverbal son she saw like numbers, and she realized that he's got a rattle that he uses. And it always moves it's always in a perfect, he never misses a beat. No matter what he's doing, the rattle's always in perfect rhythm. And when you look at, he does everything in certain sequential numbers. He moves in mathematics.
Wow. That's really something.
He's non-verbal, completely non-verbal,
yeah,
but does everything moving in mathematics. And his energy is just so beautiful to be around. Like,
really?
It's being around him, it's because he's so sensitive to, I understand it's the energy. Like people think that but when I just drop into my heart, he comes closer to me. Like I'll be in the other side of the room, drop into my heart, he comes closer, and he's got this thing where he rubs noses with you when he accepts contact from you. So he'll come up to you. He doesn't make eye contact. He come up and he'll just rub noses with you like this. And whenever I dropped into my heart, he'd come and rub noses with me. It was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
How magical he is. But he can't talk about it because he's nonverbal.
I'm also reminded of a co-host who was on the show a few years ago. Her name was Wendy Dillard. She was on with me for about a year. And she had a friend, and actually at one point it was also her roommate, who was one of these people who could see energy literally all the time. And took her many years to finally realize that other people don't see energy. And it's kind of mind-blowing to her. Like, what do you mean you don't see this? Everybody sees this, right? Yeah.
That's bonkers.
So I'm imagining, well, okay, if you can see energy, it probably means over time you kind of play with it. You kind of learn, what you can do with it and so forth. There's another way you're doing a Jedi mind trick. You're just kind of playing with that energy.
And you can learn. I mean, I learned to see energy. I don't see it all the time, but I can tune in and see the essence.
You really can, okay.
Yeah, I can see the energetic resonance. It's really weird because it's not so much seeing because you're not using your eyes, but you can see it. Like I can see the body on something. It's really fun. It's really, really fun, especially when you start getting evidence and consistently get evidence that you're not seeing things, that it's real, you're not making it up in your head.
Right.
Cool.
I have to ask, is that something that you started to see when you started to do your projections, your astral projections and so forth?
That's another.
Just not tied in at all.
Yeah, to some extent, but it's another. That's another journey. That whole chapter of my life has been really, when you're given a complete random stranger just their name, and then you allow yourself to sit with what comes up and create a construct within which to gather information about that person, and then it turns out to be real. That will freak you out. Even down to, I remember I did one once, and I was getting all this stuff, and I kept mentioning girlfriend, and it felt uncomfortable to say girlfriend. I said, I think he's gay. Is he gay? And I was right. I felt uncomfortable saying girlfriend or wife, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I feel like this guy's, is he gay? And I was right.
So it was not a feel good feeling. It was an uncomfortable feeling.
Well, no, when I'd said, when there was I was doing this thing for about an hour or something like that. But when I was making reference to him in relationship, I'd initially been saying girlfriend or wife, or can't remember what I'd said. But that didn't feel right. And so I said, you know, I really don't feel right saying that. Can I ask something? Is he gay? I was like, yeah. She was like, yeah, he's gay. Oh, wow. And then when I said his husband, it felt right. Like you can viscerally feel in your body when you're on the ball and when you're not.
See, I can appreciate that in reverse, because I'm getting better at it now, but what they call gaydar, I used to have none of it, none whatsoever. And when Louise and I were involved in creating an alternative school in the Hartford, Connecticut area, which eventually did open a year to the day, actually, after 9/11, and stayed open for many years, what I learned after one of our prep meetings, this was before we opened the school, was there were like, I don't know, half dozen of us would sit around the table and we were planning things out and so forth. And after that meeting, Louise and I were talking, and there was one person we were having trouble with. That's why we were having the conversation. She said, you do realize that we're the only straight people in that room, right? I said, what are you talking about? I was in a room full of gay people and I didn't know it.
One of the things I do love about the way the world is opening up a little bit more now is I think for me personally, against personal opinion, the whole term gaydar was when there was a stereotypical idea of what someone was going to present as when being homosexual.
Yeah, but that was lost on me too. It didn't work.
But now as more people are kind of just being allowed to be what they want to be without judgment, more people that you wouldn't traditionally associate with a particular sexual orientation are just expressing themselves and being who they are. So We're getting a lot more of a mix-up in the box of what you would say is traditionally someone's this or someone's that. And I think that's great, true. Personally.
Yeah, that's very true. Which just confuses things for somebody like me, because I never.
Yeah, because you didn't know.
Like, okay, hey, whatever, just go. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Although I have to admit that as time has gone on, I do find myself tapping in more. I don't claim to be able to see energy like you can, or like Wendy's friend could, or that sort of thing. I don't claim to have psychic abilities like Rita has or Linda has, but I'm at least a little bit more receptive now to when they say, "Stop saying that. You do have it." Stop saying that. You actually do. You're better at this than you're saying. Come on.
Well, I mean, the person that taught me about really starting to unlock my access to stuff is that everybody's got something. It may not be to the same degree, and it may not be through the same inlet, but everybody has something.
And I think that's really what I'm recognizing, that I am gaining more of I wouldn't know how to describe it, just a sense about stuff that I didn't really notice before. And it's not like it's anything that I've been able to harness in any way. I just am aware of it. It probably, almost certainly, is influencing the way I think about things, the way I think about people, the way I interact with them on some subconscious level. I'm not really aware of how I'm doing it, but it's got to be affecting me in some way. And I think it's for the positive. I think it's for the good.
Well, I mean, the energy that we bathe ourselves in is going to have some effect
no matter what. Yeah.
The outcome on what's happening in our world. So yeah, I definitely say
Well, put it this way. I've actually gotten to the point now where I could do a show where I talk about, wouldn't it be cool if we could do a Jedi mind trick? And all of a sudden now we're talking about how we do Jedi mind tricks. That's how far. I mean, 10 years ago, forget it. That conversation wasn't happening. You know?
Definitely a few quantum leaps there.
Just a few. Yeah. So it's all good. We have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure I get our promotional messages in there. So first of all, make sure that you are using the LOA Today app. I haven't put an update out lately because I'm still dealing with some issues that people have reported, but there will be another one coming out. But still, it plays, it works, everything's on there, and you want to take advantage of having the money game on there and having Dan's audiobook Beyond Intention and having Cindy Chavez's. We did the first 7 chapters of Cindy Chavez's book yesterday, The Lovely Magician's Guide to Soulmate Success, and Linda Armstrong's High Vibe Living, and more stuff coming too. We have a meditation from David Strickland that's going to be added very soon. So it's all coming, but you want to make sure you have the app so you'll get the updates. They happen automatically. And more importantly, make sure that you're sharing the app with others. We are, by the way, seeing that people are sharing because the listenership is up. We are actually on pace for a record month right now. And since the beginning of the podcast, we just surpassed a grand total of 300,000 plays of our episodes. So it's definitely growing and growing and growing. And that's all thanks to you guys, because even before the app you were sharing, now with the app you're also sharing. So I guess my message is to those of you who haven't shared yet, what are you waiting for? Just a hint. Just saying. But seriously, no, we really do appreciate those who are sharing, and it makes a difference because we're talking about raising that planetary vibration. That's how it happens. Just by sharing.
One share at a time.
One share at a time. That's all it takes. Now all we need to do is get our friend Alex back.
Yes, good old Alex. Well, she's having a whale of a time now. She's doing something fun. This time she's doing something fun, so.
At least she's not still stuck in the hospital. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think Cape Cod Resort will.
Yeah, they look really, really rough.
Have fun. Go down a slide for me, Alex.
Absolutely, yes. And come back and see us and tell us what it was like going down the slide, particularly from an energetic point of view. So, also, if you are participating in the Money Game Experiment with me and other listeners who have been contributing their questions and so forth, send a note.
Yeah, let us know your wins.
On that, but we'd like to hear.
Yeah, and I'm here pretty much every week. So, and normally it's $450 an hour to get coached by me, and you get to come do it for free.
So this is a major savings.
Come on the live stream and you get it for free. It's like, come and support the live stream. You get some coaching for free.
Good stuff. Yeah. So send those questions in because we love having the questions. It makes the show interesting, even more interesting than it already is. And
exactly.
We appreciate it.
Exactly.
Good stuff. All right, Daniel. Well, then I'm looking forward to having our next conversation with the stream of David next Tuesday. That's going to be cool. You were just telling me beforehand that you just finished another podcast with him, and it was really, really cool. I don't remember.
Yeah, he's a cool cat. I love David. He's just such a cool cat.
He really is. Yeah. And he is exploring the nether reaches of the edge, so to speak.
Yeah.
He was talking on Tuesday about all the success he's had on TikTok, which of course is apropos considering TikTok's been in the news.
Yeah, so I've got it on my to-do list to sit and actually. I remembered I've actually got an account, so I've got my username on TikTok. I just need to make some content for TikTok.
I actually did set up TikTok on my app, on my phone rather, and play with it for a little bit, but I didn't really figure out how to interact with it. The best I could do was go to the next video, and that was it. I haven't figured out anything else yet.
My stepdaughter Ariana, being 4 even, is a TikTok expert, and so she'll give you a tutorial.
Oh, okay, good. Well, yeah, it's always good to have an expert around. You know,
yeah.
That's what I say. There's never a 12-year-old around when you really need one. But good stuff. Beautiful. So thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you to our live streamers, and especially thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.